Wheeling. Coach, what's good? Yes, YC. Kalias, share. What's happening? Good afternoon, everyone. This is number 1 of the day, I believe. Yes, it's our first EduChat for the afternoon. We're going to be chatting with our physiotherapist, Kelvin Phillip. Great topic. I hope there's a lot of people out there who are listening, specifically in the sport community, not even the sport community, in general. Anyone with muscles in a human body, you should definitely listen to this conversation that we're going to have about ice and ice therapy. Interesting article that I read, and I made Calvin read as well, so that we could talk about the whole process with regards to when to use it, how to use it, and even some myths with regards to it. So we're just waiting for him to sign in, and we'll get started. So sit tight. Hope everybody is staying safe and well as well. Please make sure that you get outside and go for little walks. The trees are budding. The birds are singing. So make sure you enjoy that as well. Hopefully your Wi-Fi, your West End Wi-Fi is working today, guys, and it doesn't chip out on me like yesterday. West End Wi-Fi. All right, where's Kelvin? Let's get started. Give me 1 second. I'll be back. Yes, Noah. Hope you're good, bro. Talk soon. Where is Kelvin? How are you going to be late for a live chat? Let him get him on. Let me go. He's telling me he's ready to go on WhatsApp, but he's not here. Let's go, Kelvin. Let me go holler at him again. Ooh, okay, so ice. Generally speaking, when people get injured, they automatically believe that the best thing for them to do is to slap some ice on that injury to turn the heat down or deflame it or whatever it may be. That is something that every therapist has done, myself included. My team as well. We've supported a company by buying a really expensive equipment to use to support that idea. Coaches all across the world, when players finish playing, they immediately tell them to go on ice. There are some benefits to it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that we're going to stop doing that. However, there's a time and place. Yes, Mike. How are you?
Good. How are you doing?
Excellent. We are diving in right away. You read the article, correct?
Yes, I read it twice.
That account, that IG account is one of my favorite accounts online. Very, very, very smart dude. Very factual. Gives good tips, and the way he brings it down to the level of not just therapists, but it's for the general population. For those of you, I was supposed to put it in our bio, and I forgot to do that. I just posted on our feed about the article, but let's go right into it. First of all, introduce yourself. Tell everyone who you are, what you do. Great.
All right. So I'm Kelvin, physiotherapist at the Health Institute, or one of the physiotherapists. Yeah.
I said, tell us all the great stuff you do. That's it? What are you talking
Do all
about?
the great stuff you do.
Oh,
All
there's
right.
more.
So physiotherapist of the Health Institute. In the past, worked as a personal trainer, exercise physiologist,
Hmm.
and treated a lot of musculoskeletal injuries. Worked with a couple sports teams over in
Hmm.
Australia, and I really built up a lot of hands-on skills and exercise base for rehabbing injured people.
Excellent. And we did this convo, your intro convo, 2 weeks ago. And what I really wanted to highlight for everyone out there is that your experience as a physiotherapist and your education as a physiotherapist is in Australia. That, in my humble opinion, is leading the way with a lot of exercise physiology, manual therapy based research that really governs the way that I practice, the way that most evidence-based practitioners, chiros, physios here in North America practice. So I really knew when I saw this article that you were the person that I wanted to talk to about this, because you most likely were exposed to this well in advance. And we just want to be able to hear your opinion and get some insight for the people who are not physios, who are not chiros, who are not therapists in general. So when you work for your sports teams, what's after practice was ended, what usually or typically happened? What was the protocol?
Um, I'd say a lot of the times, they'd be getting in ice baths.
Yeah.
So like some of the times I worked for like AFL, so Australian Football League. So some of them they had like big ice baths in like clubhouse. I don't know, I can't remember. Yeah, something like a clubhouse.
Yeah.
So before the game even ends, they'd be like, go run the water in there to make sure it's ready for when they're done.
Mm-hmm.
Other times it was as simple as giving people ice packs at the end of the game. So
Mm-hmm.
it's the major thing I'd say is they use ice a lot after game sessions, training.
So what's the premise, or what's the idea behind using ice after you train? Let's just talk with training before we get into injury. Why do sports teams, or why do individuals think that after you lift or after you work out or after you play a game that you have to ice joints or muscles or whatnot? What's the idea behind that?
I think it's just, like the article said, it's a lot of just common belief and, this is what the person before me did, so this is what I'm going to do as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's the major thing. But I remember, like going back to when I was in like my undergrad and when I was doing athletic therapy. So there was like two things that we talked about when it came to icing. So
Mm-hmm.
I think the major thing that I took from it was that it was more for secondary cell death. So
Mm-hmm.
it talks about like, decreasing inflammation, so they say. But the main thing is that, like when you have an injury, like you get swelling around the tissue, and then you also have like an increased metabolic rate at a cellular level at those tissues. But then you
Mm-hmm.
also have, because you have disrupted capillary supply of blood going to that area, so you have decreased supply, but the cells are working at a higher rate. So you're going to get what's called like secondary cell death.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was the main thing that I took away, was that it was not really the primary cell death, because that's already happened, but it's more trying to limit the secondary cell death by reducing the cellular demand, so decreasing the rate that the cells are burning through energy. So I think that was one of the major things that I took away from that course, was that ice was to limit secondary cell death.
Now, you are obviously absolutely right physiology-wise. For the people who don't have a physiology background, try to say that exact concept so that they can understand, because I understand. Physios out
Okay.
there, redo that again.
All right. So I guess to put it in more of an analogy form.
Mm-hmm.
So like imagine someone's gotten into like a car accident.
Yes.
So that would be, primary injury. It's already happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that's already happened. It's in the past. We can't, we're not going to change that with
Yeah.
ice. But after that, going forward, it's what we can do to minimize any additional injuries occurring. So, like trying to keep moving or whatever would be, the main thing to limit things from getting worse. So that's the same thing in this. You're just trying to limit things from getting worse by putting on ice,
Okay.
is what I was kind of taught back in the day.
No, that is definitely what we were taught back then. That beautiful acronym. I don't know if you saw my hashtags when I said rice, this rice ain't good anymore. What does rice stand for again, Kelvin?
Rice is rest, ice, compression, elevation. Yeah, I didn't see that hashtag though.
You didn't see that one?
No, I didn't see that one.
I got creative with that.
Good one.
You like that?
Yeah, it's a pretty good one.
But listen, besides ICE being in this acronym, I think REST is also one that is also.
Yeah, so that's because even like when I learned it, they said the rice or icer, so they kind of put the R at the end. Mm-hmm. So because I think when I learned it, yeah, it was icer because they said we put it in terms of the most important to least important. So Serious? They put ice as the most important, then compression, then elevation, and then
God.
rest.
That's trash.
So yeah, and then so that was in my undergrad, and then by the time I got to the physio degree, they changed it from rest to relative rest because now all the studies have come out saying that rest is one of the worst things you can do for most injuries. So you want to try to move, so not just completely stop doing everything, but maybe decreasing what you've done usually. But yeah, right, rice, yeah, needs some work, I think.
Definitely. And for all the student athletes that are out there, coaches that are out there, with regards to rest, that's something I know that a lot of coaches struggle with, the idea that their athletes, if they've sustained any sports injuries, that they need to rest. That doesn't not mean that they don't need to go to practice. That does not mean that they don't need to do other things that can keep the conditioning of their body. For example, if a player has an ankle injury or a knee injury, guess what? You can sit down. And if you're a tennis player, you can still do your strokes. If you're a basketball player, you can still do your shots. Volleyball, you can still do your sets, bumps, all of that stuff without impeding the lower body and allowing it to heal. Rest doesn't mean do nothing.
And so even you have lower body injuries, can do upper body cardio, TRX or rows, whatever the case may be. Some battle ropes, so there's always a lot of
so many things. But anyways, let's stick to ice. What I found fascinating about that, and again, go back to that account and actually take a look at it, because there's some amazing comments from people who have these letters in front of their name that starts with a D and ends with an R, and the level of ignorance and just a lack of knowledge, it's mind-boggling. And we're in 2020, and they're outright saying, there's no way, this doesn't make any sense, and like, how could you tell athletes not to ice, and this is what needs to be done? And listen, I will tell you the honest truth. I definitely have a cryotherapy machine here. We have a Game Ready here, right?
Yes.
And I use it. We use it. Why do I use it? The main reason why I use it is for this.
Yes.
Psychologically, people need to feel good. They need to feel like something provided them some relief. And ice has been that thing.
Yeah, exactly. So, and that's, that's what I've, taken from, like, I hate something like this because, it makes it like a blanket kind of statement where it's like, ice is bad, never use it. So, like, I remember, like, years ago, like, one of my aunts sent me a link that was like, ice is terrible. It was from a doctor. I don't know. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was like, one day I hope to see ice packs in a museum because we should never use them again, kind of thing. That's, going to an extreme, but like my take, like I always tell people is that, like I always ask people, like, what do they use? Like, have you used ice? Have you used heat? And then I just go based off of that. Like, if someone says I've used ice and it works for me, why am I going to tell them to stop using ice? That just doesn't make much sense unless it's, something that I think ice is, completely terrible for. But like for the most part, I'm not of the belief that, ice is going to make your arm fall off, or, heat is going to make your arm fall off, or I don't think either of them is going to, drastically fix things on the spot alone. But I think they're both, tools that can help. But yeah, that's pretty much my take on things when I look at something like this.
I agree 1,000% and support that position 1,000% as well. I feel like in our industry, people are very extreme. Like, if you do this, you can't do that. And it's really silly. It makes we can't, because we can't do that. Everyone's different. Every patient that comes in here, you know what? This person, I may be able to start moving one day after their injury, but the next person I can't. So I have to get them more comfortable with the idea of the pain being less and the tissue is going underneath some form of repair. But the science is this, guys. Once we start including an agent outside of the body that is going to reduce the natural inflammatory response, it's going to limit how fast the healing occurs. That's the science. There's no debate about that.
Good answer. I see someone asked the question there about, does icing after training help to reduce inflammation in the joints? So just to answer that, so we know that inflammation is a natural part of the body. So like if you look at the healing processes, you look online. So the first phase of healing is inflammation, and then repair and remodeling. So why would we want to reduce inflammation is the essential thing. So that's, what the article talked about. And then immediately when you sent me this article, it reminded me of a video I had seen a couple years ago. So I went back and rewatched that video. Mm-hmm. So in that video was another physiotherapist, and he was talking about pretty much the same things about how, inflammation is a natural part of the body process. Everyone does it. Every single species does it. Mm-hmm. And then he compared it to, like coagulation. So when you cut yourself, your blood clots, and that's how you heal yourself after, cut yourself. And, it's like saying, if you cut yourself, why would you take anticoagulants to slow down the recovery process? Like, that doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. So it's the same thing with this. Why would you want to slow down inflammation if that's the first step in the healing process? Like, that kind of goes against what we've developed over hundreds of thousands of years as species. So it doesn't make sense. So it will reduce inflammation, but that's not a good thing, essentially, is what this article says. But then it also goes on to talk about like inflammation versus swelling, because there's a difference between those two things as well.
What's the difference?
So swelling, like inflammation is, like a rush of things to the area, which results in swelling. So like inflammation is more, so like at a cellular level kind of thing. So like, proteins come into the area that help with tissue healing, whereas swelling is just like a buildup of the fluids that are in the area due to like the lymphatic system, which is like another system in the body, which helps to move fluids around. But the main thing is, so like you have the circulatory system, so your heart, which helps pump blood around. But unlike that, the lymphatic system is passive. So there's no motor, there's no engine. So the only way to move things around through that is like through actively moving. So contracting your muscles around that to help pump it out, like, pumping milk or out of a cow, something like that. I think, that's what they sound. Yeah. So you gotta like manually push it out. Either like people do lymphatic drainage massage, or like actively contracting your muscles, or I think in the article they talked about like NMES, so neurological muscle stimulation is another option to do that. So the main thing is you can decrease swelling by like actively moving around and massage, trying to clear it out manually. So you can work on swelling, inflammation, you can reduce that, but don't really want to reduce inflammation.
So Sheldon, what I find interesting with that question, and 100% agree with what you said, Calvin. What I find interesting with that question, what I find interesting with this article, what I find interesting with the way that people look at when they feel discomfort or pain, if you want to call it that, is that they automatically think they need to stop it right away, right? When you train, when you lift, your muscles are going to be sore. That is supposed to happen. Every time you work out, in order to build muscle tissue, you have to break the tissue down. So I'm just repeating what you said, Calvin, with respect to the best way for you to allow your body to gain strength is to withstand the stress. And if you slap ice on the tissue that's trying to get stronger, you're just defeating the whole purpose of your workout. Now, the question that he asked was joints. Joints and muscles are two different things in terms of tissue. So I get where he's getting at, because when guys hoop, sometimes their knees are sore. Like, how do you deal with that within your practice in terms of ice? Because I know what the answer should be, but I want to see where your thought process is. Or I have an idea.
Like I said, again, that's the thing too. Like a lot of the research, you know, like they quoted in the articles is based off of muscles and ligaments and tendons and things of that nature. So for me, like I'll put ice on my knees every now and then. Like I think, yeah, I'd probably recommend ice more for joints than rather muscles and all the other things. Because to me, like it doesn't have the same kind of like effects. So like the article was talking about how like most of the research, like I said, has been done on muscles. So and they've kind of extrapolated that to pretty much everything else in the body. So yeah, I think on ice for joints, like I'm not really against that. But at the same time, like I said, still trying to work on trying to do movements around the joint to again try to help to facilitate the flow of swelling out of that area. And then I think they also talked about how icing doesn't, like I said, doesn't decrease swelling because again, like swelling is a passive thing that you need to like manually remove out of the area. So like icing is not going to decrease that, whether it's in the joints, whether it's in the muscles. So you still want to manually try to get that out either with hands-on stuff or, you know, trying to move around like cycling or whatever the case may be, depending on the area. But yeah, so what are your thoughts on that?
Well, a couple things. One, when this is over, I need you to build some chips, and I need you to go and take the FRC course. Okay? Yep. The functional range conditioning course. And I know for a fact that it will just add onto what it is that you already have in terms of your knowledge base. And it really focuses on joint control.
Yes.
I know you know range of motion. We all do. But the way that they package this and the way that they present the information, it's going to just bring you back to day one of physio school, back to kinesiology day one as well. And you're going to question why they didn't explain it to you like this. All right?
Yes.
So to answer the question of my boy Calvin and Ashley there, they were saying, what about ice and then heat? The whole premise
so like contrast that.
Like a contrast. Yes. So I'm not going to ever tell someone, don't do that. Because if that's what's worked for you in the past, continue to do that because it provides you with relief. But the science is this. Movement will help reduce any soreness you have in joints or muscles because of the whole effect of increasing blood flow, the whole effect of increasing oxygenation of the tissue, and the nutrients from your food that you eat. Those two things will create the movement at the joint, and then it will also create more heat at the muscle tissue. So using an external source to create those things isn't bad, but I would prefer movement over heat or ice. In an ideal world, every time a patient came in, Armand and I always say this, and Dr. Cass and I, we always say this, we would love to spend 5 hours with our patients. 5 hours, because it will allow us to do so much more stuff. But we don't have that liberty, time, money, because obviously we would have to charge them way more than we do.
Yeah.
But because we don't have that time, we need to expedite things. And that's why this shit comes into play. The heat packs, the ice packs, the cryotherapy machines, all this stuff. But in reality, if we had the lifestyle of working with a team and these guys, their job was to maintain their health, oh my goodness, I would not use, it would just be this. It would be this, and this. That's it. And a couple of needles in there. I wouldn't need anything else. You know what I'm saying? But we are in the situation that we're in, and we need things to speed up the process. And that's what ice and heat are for.
Yeah.
My thought. That's my thought.
Yeah, fair enough.
So it's a money thing and it's a psychological thing. Because at the end of the day, people want to be able to feel something. For example, I have a friend of mine, she asked me to put together a workout session for her. Training, just look at her training. And she's been working out for years, and she says she can't get more lean tissue. So I said, okay, let's just take a look at changing your routine. So I gave it to her on Monday, and she's already complaining, saying, I don't feel it as much as I did when I worked out in the past. And I said, that's great. Like, you don't have to feel it as long as we're
Yeah.
focusing and targeting on what we need to do. But people are so set on feeling things, and if they don't get killed,
Yes.
they don't feel the teeth, you know what I mean? Like, they don't see the benefit of it. But there's science behind it. There truly is.
Trying to read this.
I think he was just commenting, saying that it works best for him. Movement, ice and heat.
Okay, yeah, see that.
Well, I think Clive. What if movement causes pain in the joint? What do you do then? Good question. You want to take that one?
Well, I think it depends on the joint, but like at the same time, so like I think this goes back to again like that book I was talking about last time, how they said, if you have pain and you stop moving around, that doesn't really benefit anything in the long term. So
Mm-hmm.
you stop moving around, and then your muscles get weaker, things stiffen up even worse because like a lot of joints, like your knee, they're called synovial joints. So what that
Mm-hmm.
means is they have like synovial fluid, which is like a lubricant at the joint. So the more you move around, the more that gets squeezed, the more that fluid goes into the joint area and lubricates things. So that's why you typically, even though it hurts, it might hurt at first. And then after you move around a bit more, things will loosen up and hopefully the pain should decrease.
Yes.
So yeah, typically in the long term, better to, even if it's, just a gentle range of motion. Like it doesn't have to be, you're not bending it all the way. Like you just go, start small, just try to work your way up, as
Mm-hmm.
things get a little bit looser. And that's typically the way I go about it for most people.
No, I agreed 1,000% again. Clive, the whole concept with moving your joints and your tissue after feeling any soreness or pain is exactly what Calvin just said. Like, you want to try to get as much nutrients in the area as possible. So what you're going to do is you're going to move in what we call pain-free range movement. So say this is full range of motion, okay? And you can't get here, but you can get here. So as soon as you move to here, you're good. But when you go into this range, it hurts. So you just move in here. You just keep moving from here to here, here to here, until you can slowly get it past to where you are able to go full range. That's literally what we teach every single person that comes into the office. Like, we got to get you moving as soon as possible. And sometimes, again, I'm going to repeat myself. It's a money thing. It really is a money and a psychological thing, because if you keep people in pain longer, guess what? They become more dependent on you, and you need to see them more and more and more. And I personally, I can't do that conscious wise, and it's not right. Like, I want people to feel better and understand that they are in control of their health right away. So moving within pain-free range is the most important thing. But they're not going to teach us in school, because they only teach us not to kill people.
Exactly.
It's so foolish. It's so crazy. What else did you take away from that article?
Pretty much what we were just talking about just now. So they talked about how like you always want to load damaged tissues. So I think that was the main sentence. So I wrote it down exactly. It said loading damaged tissues with proper exercises as soon as possible following injury accelerates healing of muscle and bone. So I think like the main words from that were with proper exercises. So you can't just go around and do whatever you want to do, and then as soon as possible. So just because like we said, we want you to start moving, but if it's been one day after you tore your Achilles, obviously it's too early. So that's not as soon as possible in that case. So sometimes you do need to wait a little bit longer than other things. But yeah, so that's the main thing. And then also, so that kind of relates back to one of the like main theories, I think, for athletic therapy when I was learning it was the SAID principle. So specific adaptation to imposed demands. So you want to like load tissues up the right way, and that's how they build tolerance. So like with bones, like you have to have like compression forces going through bones to get stronger. With muscles, like they got to be contracting to get bigger and stronger and things like that. So again, it's just kind of reinforcing some of those things in my mind that exercise is like one of the main things to help with recovery for pain, any injuries, and with like swelling and inflammation as well.
Boy, you just dropped two big nuclear bomb. Boom! You can't just drop them and run away. You got to repeat that, bro. That was fantastic. And it always just reinforces what we do here, saying that exercise is medicine. So you got to do that again. Let's talk about the loading of the damaged tissue, because that's huge. People really, really need to hear this. Go ahead. Say it again. Rewind.
So I said, yeah, so you want to, load damaged tissues as soon as possible with the proper exercises. So as anyone can attest, there's a million exercises out there under the sun. You can go on YouTube, go on Instagram, could find a million things. That doesn't always mean they're right. So I think I'm gonna post a video today. I think I'm gonna post a video later today. So looking at like some rotator cuff exercises. So I always see, I'm sure you see it too. You see people in the gym holding a dumbbell, doing this.
One of my favorites. Yep, love
that one. It's like, what is that doing? Like you're just you're working your biceps and going through that range of motion. And a million exercises out there that people think are targeting certain muscles, not doing anything at all. So you got to do things like in the right way. So I think that's the main thing, like physiotherapy, like us, chiropractors, you guys as well. So trying to keep things correctly, looking at form.
But pause there for a second. Let's just not generalize that statement, because it's not true. Number one, that physiotherapists or chiropractors will be able to assist in prescribing the right exercises. That is absolutely false.
That's right.
Okay, let's be honest right now. Not everyone is on the ball with understanding that exercise is where it's at. Okay, because like that, it just drives me wild. Yes, you're right. There are so many exercises on YouTube, on IG right now, and I really want to emphasize this to the student athletes that are listening. Kalia, you are listening. You mentioned this yesterday. When you injured your knee, you thought it was just going to magically go away, like the coronavirus, aka Trump. But it's not like that. Like, you have to make sure that you're going to see someone who is able to assess what tissue is injured.